I'd like to welcome everybody tonight. My name is Eric Hodson. I work with the Arizona region of USA Volleyball and Coaches Education. Just want to remind everybody that tomorrow night, two-time Olympian and two-time silver medalist, actually tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., Nicole Davis will join us for another talk on training your athletes on the mental side. But tonight, we welcome and a good friend of mine and a wonderful person, Shelley Small. She was my boss at USA Volleyball Education for a lot of years, and before that has coached at, I think, every single level, boys, girls, kids, puppies, everything. We are currently in the process of, if she hears a siren, there are wildfires going on literally down the street from where she lives. So if we hear a siren, we may have to cut this off quickly. But Shelley, welcome, and happy to have you.
Oh, thanks, man. It's so good to be with you guys. Yeah, not really a joke. Colorado Springs has kind of exploded in fires today. We knew it was coming. We've been holding our breaths for weeks and weeks now because we've had like 42 days of red flag, whatever, fire warnings, and that's twice as many as we have usually by this time. So we knew it was coming, but today it came, and so it's a little crazy out there and a little smoky inside my house. So hopefully you can, see what's going on here, and I'll try not to cough and hack. But if you do hear some weird things, might be my phone giving me a little alert, or I don't know what could possibly happen out there. But anyway, I'm so glad to be here. I'm honored to be with you guys and to be asked to share with literally one of my favorite regions in USA Volleyball because of the commitment and the investment that people like Eric have had for years in your region. And it's just one of many of my favorite memories at USA Volleyball are with him and with my other instructors, just getting to spend time with coaches, and that's really become my passion in the past few years. And it's just been a big part of my life now, and it's all of my life now. So I'm excited to get to share with you guys, and thanks for being here. So we're going to talk tonight about something that's called three-dimensional coaching. It's not something that's just brand new, or I would say earth-shattering, but it is something that, gosh, I know I needed many years ago when I first started coaching, because I literally kept myself in one dimension. So let me tell you just a little bit about where I have come from, a little bit about my journey. I was a four-sport athlete in high school, which kind of unheard of now, isn't it? It seems like everybody's just specialized in one sport. We're doing that just all year round. And so I was so, thankful to be able to do that and do four sports, and then, get to narrow it down and play volleyball at Baylor University. And I went there to be a teacher, but not a coach. I absolutely was not going to be a coach. And I'll tell you why. And I think I'm safe in saying this, but I had a rough experience with my own coaches, and I just didn't want to go down that path. Well, guess what my first job right out of college was? I moved to Colorado Springs, and right out of the bag, I was hired as the head coach at a high school down on the south side of town. And so, okay, I guess I am going to coach. And my gosh, 5 minutes into that, and I completely fell in love with it and knew that that's what I was supposed to do. So yeah, never say no, I guess. So I coached high school here in Colorado, then went back to Dallas-Fort Worth area and coached and taught there for, about 25 years. Decided to get out of the heat and come up here to Colorado Springs, get in the mountains and the wildfires. And so I've been here for, coming up on about 10 years. Most recently, been coaching boys, coached boys high school, boys club, and coached at Colorado College, which is a D3 school that's right down the street here, and spent 4 seasons with those guys. And like Eric said, I was with USA Volleyball for 6 or 7 years in the coaches education department, and that's where I just fell in love with coaching coaches. Went through some of the clinics myself, and went through some GMS and art of coaching stuff too. And now I'm full-time staff with Fellowship of Christian Athletes here in Colorado Springs. And so I get to work with coaches all the time now, so it's really awesome. But I would say that, no matter what clinics or, things that I went to as a coach, I learned a lot. But I remember being a young coach, and when I went to these clinics, all I wanted was drills. I wanted to just fill my notebook with drills. And we'll talk about why that can be a little bit of a dangerous thing. But my real education and my real certification came, in those times when I was really being introspective and thinking about practice, thinking about the season as a whole, thinking about matches, and then thinking about them again after they took place, and just really taking inventory. And so that's what I really want to focus on tonight for you guys. And quite honestly, I don't know if I've got all coaches on here or if we've got some athletes, we got some parents on here. I hope we have everybody, and that would be cool. It's great for me, but I'll be speaking mostly to coaches, but if we have some athletes and parents, this is for you guys too, because these 3 dimensions that we're talking about they're for all of us. And so we want to, I know that for some of us, season's over. Some of us are going on to nationals, and some of us are just going to have a little break before we hit it up again here pretty quickly, I would imagine. So I want everybody to be real honest tonight. Take a look back at your seasons, and let's take a real honest inventory of how you think you did as a coach, how you think you did as a player, if we have any athletes on here. And then let's look ahead, because like I said, it'll be coming quickly, I'm sure. Tryouts get earlier and earlier every single season, to where everything overlaps at this point. I don't even know. And so we want to look ahead too, and just be committed to, to getting better. And if you're on here, tomorrow morning, and if you're on here yesterday or whenever that other one was, then I know you're committed. I know you're committed to getting better, and that's really cool. So let's take a look at, these are the 3 dimensions that I am referring to. So like I said, it's not really rocket science, but let me say this. A lot of coaches spend a lot of time at that first level, at that first dimension, the fundamentals level. So we'll talk about that. And gosh, I know as a young coach, I spent a ton of my time there and didn't spend enough time at the other 2 levels, at the other 2 dimensions. And it's very important not just to coach our athletes at those 3 levels, but we've got to think about ourselves too, because if you aren't at your best at each of those levels, at each of those dimensions, then man, you know as well as I do that you don't give your best out on the court, and we won't fulfill our purposes as coaches unless we too as coaches are doing our best, and we're really taking a good look at ourselves in each of those 3 areas. Okay, so tonight I'm not going to give you all the answers at these 3 dimensions. Okay, I'm not going to tell you how and give you things to do to have a team that's in better shape and can jump higher and all that kind of stuff. What I want to do tonight is just take a look at these 3 dimensions and make sure that we are balancing them and that we're not spending too much time in one of the dimensions, okay, especially that first one. All right, so like I said, make sure, let's take a good look at ourselves. And if we're not well taken care of in all of those levels ourselves as coaches, then we need to work on that too, okay? All right, let's start down at that first one though. Let's talk about the physical part. Let's talk about the body. And this is where all our fundamentals go. This is where our tactics go. This is where our fitness is, okay? Our strength, our power, the cardio and speed and quickness, our vertical, our explosiveness as volleyball players, our technique, repetition, tactics. Now, I don't know if any of you guys coach boys, but you'll hear me talk a little bit about both of those tonight, because if you ever get the chance to do that, I hope you will. I've just had a total blast. I finally found the greatest balance coaching high school or college females and high school boys has just been my great balance, and I've loved that a lot. But the way you do it's really different, so you got to use both sides of your brain. Now, like I said a second ago, this first dimension, this physical dimension, this is where a lot of coaches feel really comfortable, and especially new coaches that are coming right out of maybe a career as a player in college, or maybe you're one that went to 47 different clinics and filled your notebooks with drills and things. But a lot of people, me included, feel very comfortable at this first dimension. Okay, that's not a bad thing, but it is bad if we just hang out there. Now look, I know I'm not the only one, and maybe not the only one on here, that was hired just because I played ball in college. I had there's no reason I should have gotten that job at the varsity level at a high school. I didn't even go to college to be a coach, but just because I played, they assumed that I could coach, and that just wasn't true. And if I could go back and change about a million things, I really would. But when I look back, I really hung out at this first dimension quite a bit because I felt comfortable there. I knew how to get kids in shape. I knew how to, I knew all the cool things to teach them. I knew all the cool drills and all that, but that's not where we want to hang for too long, okay? You know, the age-old issue, especially in club ball, is that we tend to have our athletes, twice a week, most people, I guess, twice a week for a couple of hours at a time. And I know that worries people, it worries coaches. Man, I don't have enough time to keep my athletes in the shape I want them in. And I also know that some facilities or some clubs that have their own facilities also, or that share, like we have one that we share with a couple of other sports. And so there's a strength and conditioning person there, which is kind of cool. But what you have to be real careful about is some of the strength and conditioning coaches at a facility that has like baseball in there or basketball, they might be really in tune with conditioning those athletes, maybe not volleyball as much. So we just have to be careful that if you're going to work with somebody, that they do have a lot of knowledge about what volleyball players need, and the explosiveness and the side-to-side movement. And we'll talk a little bit about overuse here in just a second. But what I would say to a younger me, or to just any coach that hangs out at this level, is really, as you want your kids to be in volleyball shape, spend time doing volleyball things, for your conditioning. I remember doing that with my boys team, and I think they thought I was going to come in there and just make them run all the time. I don't know what that was about, but we did plenty of conditioning, but we did it while we were playing. And so, by the end of practice, everybody's gassed and, can't figure out why they can't walk the next day. Well, we're doing volleyball things for volleyball conditioning. And one of the things I wish I had known a long, long time ago was not to do some kind of static warm up and stretching and all that kind of business, and get out there and play to warm up. Not crazy play, but just play to warm up all the things that need to be warmed up. And then if you want to do some kind of dynamic warm up or stretching, then that's awesome. But it's just, you can get so much more conditioning in than you think you can, just in your practices, if you work on the things that you really need to for your conditioning. Let's see, yeah, our first dimension, let me kind of go back here just a little bit. Another reason why I think a lot of coaches like to hang out here and we feel good here, we feel confident and comfortable here, is that it's so much more tangible, it's measurable. These are things that we can see pretty quickly. But the important thing to remember, and what I want to say tonight, is that this physical part, really affects the other two dimensions. It really affects a player's mind. It affects a player's heart. And if we don't find that balance, and if we don't find that positive way to work all three together, then we're kind of doing a disservice, and one of the things that really stands out to me in club sports, and I mentioned it a little bit before, is that it's basically become almost year-round. And I know for some, there's a couple of clubs around here that it is absolutely year-round. And I know we used to have a rule in Texas that you can have tryouts for club until the state tournament was over, the state high school tournament was over. And I kind of like that. Kind of made a lot of sense to me back then, but that's not how we do things now. So in this first dimension, we got to be so careful with our overuse injuries. And I'm one that can speak from experience, let me tell you. Especially the shoulder. I didn't know this right off the bat, and I didn't know this really as an athlete myself, but the overhead motion for your shoulder is not natural. That's not the way that the shoulder was really meant to work. When you see fast pitch softball pitchers, they can pitch every night, and it's okay because, the underhand motion is the natural motion. The overhead motion is not natural. So we've got to be so careful to strengthen both sides of that shoulder and not go crazy with overuse. And unfortunately, I'm just seeing more and more players that are having those issues really early on in a season, or they'll have it during club and then they can't play high school, or they'll have it during high school, then they can't play club. And they're just, we're killing our bodies, backs and knees and things that just need a little bit more care. And we've just got to have some time off just to recuperate. And you've probably heard people like Eric talk about the multi-sport athletes, and multi-sport athletes have less of those overuse injuries because they're working so many other parts of their bodies. And so I think that's just and I realize I'm saying that now because I was able to do that, but a lot of people are not able to do that now because we've made this so business-like, I guess. And our goal in coaching is in sports and playing is to discipline our bodies, to put the good things in there and to take good care of our bodies. It's the only one we get, and not to violate it. And I'm afraid that we do a lot to really violate our physical selves, and that's just boy, then you grow up to be old like me, and then you really pay for it, and it's kind of a bummer. And it's yeah, I've had parents say, would you do it all over again? Because I've had quite a few surgeries, and I don't like to talk about the number, but it's double digits. And would you do it all over again? Well, of course I would. I would do some things differently. Yes, a lot of things differently. But I think we're smarter now. We got to be smarter about this, and we just have to kind of block out what the world tells us is right for our bodies. The sports world really pressures us. They pressure us to look a certain way, to do certain things, to stay, this weight or that weight. And coaches, I know you've probably seen this play out in your athletes' lives. I know I have. And I was not prepared for it either. I was not prepared for it as a teacher, and I was not prepared for it as a coach. And it's those eating disorders and just exercising to the point of just damaging yourselves. It's just it's a hard thing to deal with. So we as coaches, we've got to be on top of that. And this last one gets to me a lot because sometimes it's hard to discern between, pushing past your limits for growth, because we all need that. And we need to teach our athletes that, right? But we also can't push somebody and into the point of injuring our athletes. I'm a prime example of that too. It's just it's a fine line, and I'm afraid a lot of coaches don't really know where that line is. But it's got to be open communication with you and your athletes. We do not want to push somebody into injury, especially into a chronic injury. We're physical beings, we're physical beings. And so this is such a huge part of our lives, not just as athletes, but just as humans. But our second and third dimensions, our minds and our hearts, they'll function at their very best when our bodies are functioning at their very best too. And that's just something I want you guys to keep in mind. And so we just want to have the knowledge that this first dimension really affects those other two. Okay. Now, here's a question that might make somebody uncomfortable. I don't know. It made me uncomfortable, but there are times when coaches try to use a first dimension solution. That's a fancy way of saying physical punishment for what's really a second or third dimension problem. And that can be a very dangerous thing. I know we've all got our own little rules about, if you're late to practice or whatever, if you miss practice. But making somebody run or do some physical punishment that really is not volleyball related in the least bit, is certainly not going to help in the long run. It might teach some quick lesson, I don't know, but I know I didn't grow as a player when I was punished that way. Man, we were punished all we were punished in my high school. We were basically scared into winning. And so we won because we were scared not to. We were that team, that program that, you know, if we did lose, let's say on the road or something, we'd be the ones that came back to the gym at 11 o'clock at night and practiced. And let me tell you, it wasn't a practice. And you know, it's funny. I don't think parents would really allow that these days, but our parents were like, yeah, whatever the coach says, that's just what it is. And I know for me, I was scared into playing through injuries that were actually quite severe and that I think I'm still paying for today. And so leading by that kind of fear and that physical punishment is absolutely just not acceptable and just not a part of coaching at this three-dimensional level. Let's see. My dog, he likes to wait until I'm on a webinar and then he wants to go out a few hundred times. So I'm going to see how long we can make this last. Okay, so I've said it, you know, about 10 times. Let's try really hard. Let's not try. Let's work hard to not stay stuck in this first dimension. Okay. Now some of these might seem a little interesting. I want you to think about it because this has happened to me too. These are some things that might happen if you spend all your time in this first dimension. And man, as I wrote these out, I thought, my gosh, is that why? Is that why I had a problem with this team? Is that why I had a problem with this athlete? Well, it's quite interesting to think about. So these are some issues though. Unmotivated athletes, especially when the season doesn't quite meet expectations. Athletes not playing to their full potentials, especially in the big games. Emotions all over the place and kind of a selfish, you know, what's in it for me mentality. So those are some literal things that can happen if you just spend all your time in the physical aspect of our sport. So we're going to get out of it and go on. So now we have to work. Okay. Now, as a coach, this is where we got to spend some time. Okay. And this is where we start taking that first dimension and see how it fits in with the second dimension. This is that psychology part. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's what you guys had maybe yesterday, if anybody joined that one yesterday. But you know, this is the part that a lot of people don't learn in college, you know, and so you've got to do a lot of reading, a lot of studying, a lot of networking, and a lot of talking to other coaches that are really good in this dimension. And it takes work. It really does. So this is body mind together. This is what we call dualism. And the things that are a part of this are things like motivation. These aren't all, but things like motivation, confidence, emotions, team cohesion, goal setting. And if you're like me, as I look at each of those individually, gosh, those are all things that, you know, we could certainly use some brushing up on. I know I can all the time. So as we take a look at motivation, that's the inclination to pursue and persist in the journey towards a desired outcome. And you hope that you're all on that same page, right? And of course, our jobs as coaches would be super easy if we had players that came in every Tuesday and Thursday with great attitudes and showed great effort and were already motivated, intrinsically motivated, right? Then they wouldn't need us too much, would they? But I want you guys to think, as you think back to your season, what motivates your players? And maybe even think about what motivates you, you know, and how do you motivate your players? because that's a big part of keeping them engaged, isn't it? Now, unfortunately, there are some things that also motivate players, and those are things like pride, jealousy, fear, anger. Man, I've been on that fear end of it for sure. I've been on that anger end of it for sure. And again, sometimes you could get a short-term result that you think, well, see, it worked. I yelled at this kid. She came right out and she did what I told her to do, and I screamed at her, and it worked. And well, probably not going to be too great in the long run, you know. Um, as as coaches and role models, it's hard to learn new things and grow. It's hard to put yourself into that position to have that growth mindset. But it's hard for a player too. But we have to provide the kind of motivation that doesn't scare people, that doesn't frighten people into playing for you. That's not, I know that's not the legacy that you want to leave behind, is that my players performed because I scared them into performing. And I've thought more about just providing what we want to be, this love of the game. What about having fun? I used to think this having fun business was for maybe the elementary school or the middle school, and that's not true. My gosh, here we have this sport that is really a lifetime sport. If you've ever been to adult nationals, man, you'll look down and there'll be a court of 75-year-old men and women playing down there. It's a lifetime sport, but it sure isn't if we don't provide that environment of joy, And this picture is a bunch of my weirdos from Colorado College, and of course we're lucky up here. We have a nice little cabin we can run off to, but doing things that aren't just about volleyball sometimes is pretty darn important for your team and for their motivation and for their minds and for their hearts. If you coach female athletes, it's absolutely vital. Like this group right here, any group I've coached, they're not going to go to battle together until they've bonded, So how you do the old sleepovers and the go out to the cabin and all that kind of stuff. The female player needs that. Now the boys, not so much. They need to compete and battle, and then they'll bond. And so I don't know if any of you coach boys, but keep those things in mind, because that's the most important thing anybody ever told me about coaching the boys and the girls. But regardless, doing things together away from the court is just so very important. It's so very important for everybody. It's important for the coaching staff too, not just the players. The second one, I believe the second one was confidence. And gosh, this goes back as I think about providing that environment of athletes not being afraid to make mistakes. I think when an athlete loses confidence is because they were afraid to screw up. They're afraid to make mistakes in practice. They're going to be pulled. Oh gosh, the latest in the volleyball world at the college level is another alleged situation at another college where a coach really has been coaching by fear, and the whole program is basically left, and I don't think that many of those players are going on to play anywhere else. I think they're just leaving the sport altogether because no one has any confidence. And these are college players. These are Division I players. who have lost their confidence because they were surrounded by just this fear, and they couldn't make mistakes, and it was just terrible for them. We hear it over and over again. This one is just the latest, the latest story. But you know what? Look how important confidence is. It's really the most influential psychological contributor to success on the court for an athlete or a team. That's a big statement. That's huge. So I like looking at confidence like this too, because if we want to think about confidence now with our players, now in the season or wherever, or your next season, it does exist right now by looking back in belief and looking forward to, that desired outcome with hope that you can do it. And again, that's just because you are not fearful of making mistakes. And I hope that we're all at a point, or that we're getting to a point where making mistakes is not only allowed but welcomed in your gym. I really do. Emotions is the next one, and gosh, you guys know as well as I do that as athletes and coaches and parents, the entire range of the human emotions scale is regularly put on display through sports. Gosh, spend a few minutes on YouTube and you see the best in athletics and you see the worst in athletics. And gosh, I think we've seen both here in the past few days. The Kentucky Derby thing was so cool to watch. I don't know if you saw the latest video. The young girl runner lost her shoe at the beginning, decided not to run barefoot, but she went back and got it, put it on, won the race. That's the best, when you see athletes help each other and maybe lose their place. We see the best and the worst too. But helping players gain mastery over their own emotions is one of our biggest jobs. And of course, that has to start with us having mastery of our own emotions first. And again, we can't be role models, and we can't say that we are coaching this whole athlete if we explode every time there's a bad call, every time some child who's calling lines makes a mistake. As soon as your player sees you do that, then it's okay for them to do the same thing. But the good part about our emotions is that they're okay. I knew I couldn't make it. Our emotions are they're secondary. They're a response, and so that means we can control them. I'm not saying that that's easy. I'm just saying that we can. Okay. Oh, good. Okay, good. I bought a few more minutes by being nice to my dog. Here's my crazy boys. We had some crazy hair. Look at the hair on this team right here. I think that's why we won. People were just kind of staring at us like, wow, they got hair going on over there. But our team cohesion, it's that that question of how do I take a bunch of me's and change them over to a we, and it's different for every group, isn't it? And you kind of got to find that climate you want to create, that culture you want to create, and find a way to get everybody going in the same direction. We've got cohesion that's based on tactical cohesion. You know what I mean? Like, not only do we have to be a really great team cohesively as players, but socially too, because Well, we don't want to get kids out there that hate each other, and then they are supposed to somehow tactically do a really great job. So there's two different, levels of of team cohesion. So that part is super important. Um, Unfortunately, a lot of team cohesion is kind of rocked by when athletes compare themselves with each other. I don't have that. Well, I had a little bit of that with these crazy boys, but I have a lot of that with my female athletes, and um, uh, I read this quote by, I know, Teddy Roosevelt, and it says, comparison is the thief of joy. Wow, it really is. And all we see from our, our, oh, I can hear the planes flying over, putting some fires out. Always we see from our professional athletes is, individual this and individual that, and accolades, and more money and millions and millions of dollars and contracts. And so, we've got our athletes, our young athletes, looking at people that really just care about themselves and not so much about their team, And so we as coaches literally have to kind of go against the stream. We got to go upstream from everything that our kids see in the media all the time, Because I like to say, and I like for anybody to argue with me, that volleyball is really the ultimate team sport. I realize there are other sports where you need the people around you, obviously, but man, volleyball, it's like there are 6 people that everybody's got to be in on that play every single time, and it's just, to me, the ultimate team sport. Now we got to work harder. The higher we go up in that pyramid, the harder we have to work. I'm in an organization now where we kind of focus on this piece first, which is really cool, but it's challenging, especially when I've come from, spending so much time in that first dimension. But spending time here is incredibly, incredibly important. And this, spending time on an athlete's heart is where your legacy really will lie. This is where we get to see all 3 things work together, and those 2 pieces below it really have an influence on this piece right here. And you're going to hear me say this, and I won't take too much more of your time, but you need to know as a coach why you're doing this. And your athletes also need to know why they're playing. We all need to know our whys, and that's a huge part of this heart piece. The other pieces to think about here when you're working on your athletes' hearts are their sense of identity, their character, their significance, their feelings of self-worth, the values they bring into your team, and their purpose, their whys. Okay, and give me 1 second. I apologize. Need to let my little friend outside. I'll be just 1 second. Okay. The clearer that you can state what your why is, okay, and whether you want to look at this as a coaching philosophy or whatever, you can call it what you want. I kind of like to think about it as my purpose statement now. But the clearer you can state that, then the more accurately you can get after it, the more accurately you can pursue it, and the more powerful it is. And because it's more powerful, then the bigger the legacy that you're going to leave. Now, I want to show you this video. It has nothing to do with volleyball, but it has everything to do with knowing your why and your purpose.
This is called How Do I Know? And a lot of times when people hear the phrase, how do I know? The next thing they say is what? How do I know what? But the key really isn't to know what. The key is to know why. Because when you know your why, you have options on what your what can be. For instance, my why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. My what is stand-up comedy. My what is writing books. My what can be going out with some friends to eat. In fact, another what that has moved me towards my why is a web series that we have out now called Break Time. So every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, you should subscribe to the channel. We do a series called Break Time on YouTube. So 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode. One episode in particular, I'm about to show you a clip to. We were in Winston-Salem. So Break Time, this is how it works. I travel the country, I do stand-up comedy, probably an hour and a half at an event. And in the middle of my show, I'll just sit down and start talking to the audience. And funny just happens. Or I'll meet somebody who's really interesting. So I met this one guy, and he said that he teaches music at a school. I was like, all right, you teach music, can you sing? And then I'm just gonna show you the clip. Check it. So you're a musical director.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That bro could sing. You know what I'm saying? Now, once you give me the version, is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick. If you know which version I'm talking about, just see if that exists. Let me see what you got.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Okay, you get the idea, yeah? So I love that because I don't know if he had known his why and like his context, I guess, first, he probably would have broken out with that particular version first. But it really changes you, and it changes your performance. It changes you as a coach too. It changes your performance as a coach too, when you know your why. And I just wanted to share that with you, just to show you what a difference it can make, Oh, good. Excuse me. Buddy, seriously. There you go. All right. Okay, we're having some fun now, aren't we, buddy? Okay, so I think one of the biggest pieces of this, of the heart, is the identity piece. And this to me has been my most challenging thing as an athlete and as a coach. And that is that my identity I always placed on the scoreboard, in the record, by the number of accolades or whatever. And guys, we cannot do that to ourselves, and we cannot do that to our athletes. Our identities are not in anything like that. You think about, if that's really where you are, then your identity is in the performance of kids, and it's not always going to be great. So we can't go there. We being a coach is what you do. Being a volleyball player is what you do. Playing volleyball is what you do. That's not who you are. So we've got to be really careful in that space. That one was always a big one to me. Character, another part of the heart. Sports in any capacity are their character building, but their character revealing also. And so I hope that just a character building program is a part of your club, or maybe something that you guys can do in the future. That's something we definitely do at our club. We take some time, and because we don't want to just produce volleyball players, we want to produce men and women of character, and that's a big piece of it. Significance in self-worth. We see this in the news, unfortunately, a lot lately. You know, every single one of your players needs to know their importance, and that your team would not be the same if any of them were missing. I was the coach at a public high school over here at the Air Force Academy, and we found really great success. And I think one of the reasons was that the second team, I made sure that they knew how vitally important they were to our success, because if they're not built up and if they're not encouraged, then they just kind of have that mentality of being a B team or a second team or whatever. But I made sure that they knew that they were never to allow the first team to, you know, put a ball down on them. And it just gave them this hunger that I'd never seen before, because I never really worked hard on that part. And my gosh, it was amazing what it did for the whole team. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, first year, and this team went all the way to the state championship match, and it was absolutely amazing, because I spent more time on the heart. I spent less time on the physical piece and more time on the heart and the mind. Values, obviously kids are coming in with their own values, but it's not like you can't teach some of those too. You know, you think about values, they kind of guide our thoughts. They guide our emotions and our decisions, our behaviors. You don't want them to affect your emotions, that's for sure. And then again, back to that why. That's our purpose. And if you don't get anything else out of tonight, I just hope that thinking about your why and the why of your players is something that really kind of hangs in your heart. Because think about how cool it would be if your why and your athlete's whys intersect, you know, and that's when amazing things can happen. And these things happen too if you work on all three of those parts of an athlete. One of them might seem a little interesting, but athletes really, really will learn more quickly. They'll work harder for you. They can even recover from injuries faster, and that's the part that might sound kind of weird, but if you think about, you know, injuries really affect not just your body, but they affect all of you. They affect your mind and your heart. And if those other two pieces of you are functioning at a really high level, and that the injured player is still a huge part of the team, they will recover faster. They want to get back out there, and it has been proven that can happen. It's really kind of a cool thing to look into. Players can be more adaptable to new conditions and new learning environments, play at a higher level, and most importantly, and I hope this is one of your main reasons for getting into coaching in the first place, is that they can learn life lessons through playing for you, playing sports. It's one of my best friends and coaches that worked for me at USA Volleyball. He just won a big award today, and the main thing he said about why he loved coaching is that sports is like a little microcosm of life, and he likes to teach people how to practice life, through sport. And I thought that's a good way to put it, and so very, very important. I would say if you don't have a coaching philosophy, or if you have one, it's okay to change it and adapt it and make it better. But you know what else I'd say about it is it shouldn't be tucked away in some notebook you'll never find again. It should be out and available for the world to see. Your philosophy or your purpose, your why should be available for any parent or any athlete or admin or anybody to see. And, not something that you should be ashamed of, but something you should be really, really proud of. And something that you look back on quite a few times during your season, I want to encourage you guys to keep learning and keep growing. I just, the Arizona region does such a great job with coaches education and just offering things for you guys just to get better, not just better volleyball players and coaches, but better people. And that's why I like to hang out with those Arizona people, even though they're kind of weird sometimes. We all leave a legacy, and some of them aren't so good. So I encourage you guys to think about, what you want to leave. I was at a training last week, and in the middle of it, they invited us all downstairs, and there was this room set up like a party. It was a retirement party. We're like, well, you don't even know us. Why are we at a retirement party? And the retirement party was for us, and we were to look at what we would want athletes and coaches to say about us if we were retiring that day. And it was a very interesting exercise. And it really made me think, like I had to verbalize what I wanted somebody to say about me, and somebody, what I wanted them to say about playing for me. And so I encourage you guys to think about that, because you'll leave a legacy. I just want you to leave a really, really good one. I know one of the things that's important to me is I love to see how many of my players have gone on to, if they play college ball, that's great. Love it. I like to see which ones go on to be teachers and coaches, and then they come back to me years later out of the blue, or on one of those national love your old coach day or whatever. And, they come back and they tell you that you did make a difference. And so that's when I know that, okay, maybe I did do something right. But I'm just thankful to be able to share some of this stuff with you. This is a whole it's a whole series of learning this 3D coach. So there's some information about the 3D Institute, and Jeff Duke is the guy who does it. He's got he works with FCA, with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, but he's got secular versions of all of this too. I also do something that's called the 360 coach, which is the same thing that I was telling you about, but we really focus on that heart piece first. And guys, if you ever want to, if you have any questions or want to reach out or anything, there's my email on there, and please don't hesitate. I love working with any coaches and athletes, and just would be happy to communicate with any of you guys. But I sure appreciate your time, and thanks for being on here with me. And I wish I could see your faces, but I can't. So I hope you guys have a great whatever's coming up next for you. If it's just a little break time or nationals or whatever, tryouts coming up again. I hope everything goes really well, and that you guys think about these three pieces of the puzzle. Mr. Eric?
Yeah, Shelley, thank you so much. I've got a quick question from an attendee, Marwan Jafir. Actually lives in Delaware, but
What?
his question was of the framework you presented, and it's a lot of information, a lot to
Yeah,
take
it
in.
is.
But if tomorrow you had to give a room full of coaches three
Mm.
things, just three things to change going forward, or three things maybe to think about in this framework, what would those three big rocks be?
Yeah, wow, what a great question, Marwan. Thanks, my friend. Gosh, probably the thing that I have repeated a lot tonight, and it's just been on my mind so much lately, and that's just that's the why piece of this. And again, just looking at it from not only from uh, the standpoint of yourself as a coach. You got to, whatever you do, you guys, it's not just coaching, but whatever you do, you got to know your why. But also from the standpoint of a player too. I think we don't take time to do that. I think another piece of it would be the one that's really kind of eating at me a lot that I struggled with just, and this is it may just be a personal problem, I don't know, but is that identity piece. But I think we're taught from a young age that athletes are the score, they are their record, they are their, last win or loss. And I think that's been a kind of a dangerous thing for us. And it's taken me a long time to just kind of chill out on the sideline and let my players play and not worry about the end result so much, and certainly not place my own identity in that end result. And then another thing, Marwan, I would say to really create a culture of the process, the process of learning and growing and loving this game. My gosh, you guys, I've turned on so many of my family members to volleyball, and I'm like, I've been telling you this for about 47 years that this is a pretty cool sport. Now you're just now believing me, but just that process. Again, it's not about the wins and losses. I stopped keeping up with those a long time ago, but it's just about that process of learning and growing and learning to love your teammates and be encouragers. And yeah, those would be my big three rocks. Marwan, thank you, my friend.
Okay, if anybody has any questions, Shelley's email is there at the bottom. She's very quick to get back with people. I can't thank you enough. I wanted to let you know that the Royals are down 1-0 in the bottom of the third.
Oh no. Okay.
But
So
in addition to the fires, yeah, that are knocking on our front door, tell them the other thing that you had going on tonight.
yeah, I accidentally left the door open. So if you can't see me now, that's why I left the door open. So yeah, I got to go see my little cousin pitch. Hopefully he's still on the mound.
He is. He's still on the mounds. Bottom of the third.
Oh,
So
y'all just watching the game and I wasn't able to watch it?
I was just checking the score for you. So anyway, but yeah, her little cousin is making his big league debut tonight. So yeah. So anyway, she's gonna watch the rest of the game. Everyone,
Yep.
Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock with Nicole Davis. And Shelley, I can't thank you enough. You crushed it. Appreciate you so much.
Appreciate you guys so much.
All right. Good night, everyone.
See ya.